Hello everybody, it is Monday the 25th of July. I want to talk about the worship of knowledge, where the view of the Creator is the view of the light, is that light is knowledge, and only knowledge. There are those that would worship the Creator in this one part, and they say that part is all. Again, the Creator is all, and He's more than just knowledge. But those are Puritans that worship the light as pure knowledge. So, how did we get here? The roots, you can see it in Egypt, and I'll come to Egypt, but even the roots of Egypt are, I would say, lying in Sumeria. The Sumerians were the first ones that worshipped knowledge, that created temples, which were the gathering places of knowledge, and where the knowledge was served by a priesthood, the few, that would gather the knowledge and keep it as a treasure and worship it as God. And then the Egyptians were a follow-on from that. Now, the Sumerian culture, there's a thing. The Sumerian culture apparently appeared out of nowhere. We cannot see the roots. We cannot see a small development from a seed to the full culture. It was suddenly there. And it is not far-fetched to think that we cannot see the roots of that culture because the roots did not originate in this world. That is a possibility. From what we're seeing, that is a possibility that we need to consider. That this thinking did not grow out of this world, does not have its roots in this world. So then we come to Egypt, which my friend is making these videos about the greatness of Egypt and the greatness of their knowledge. Which, yes, they had great knowledge. But they worshipped that knowledge as God in temples. Yeah? And they had a priesthood at the top of the pyramid that gathered the gold, that mined the gold and dragged it into the temple. And what they did in the temple is they encrypted the knowledge. And all secret societies do the same thing. They encrypt the knowledge so that Joe Sixpack would not be able to understand it. But they were the enlightened ones, the keepers of the knowledge. And what did this knowledge serve? See, knowledge is grown out of life. Knowledge is grown out of this biological form, out of the experiences of this biological form. But they extract it from the biological form, which they see as an inferior vessel. An inferior vessel that is containing the knowledge. So they extract the knowledge out of the inferior vessel to make it pure light, uncontaminated by the biological vessel. Yeah? And that's what the Egyptians did, and that's what everybody does after that. See, even in the tree of life, the Kabbalistic tree of life, you can see the same principle. You have the 10 Sephirot, which are the biological vessel, but that biological vessel it's not a Sephirot, but in some of the depictions you can see a broken circle, and inside of the circle is that, which is knowledge. So you can see, they're seeing the Creator as a field of knowledge with the biological form, vessel, floating in that knowledge, receiving of that knowledge, but then it has to be extracted of the vessel, because the biological vessel is inferior. So that's what the Egyptians did. Yeah, they created those temples. And does the knowledge serve anything? Yes, it does. Some of it has been given back to Joe's six-pack, very little of it, enough to keep him alive, so he can keep mining. And it most certainly, God's knowledge will reward its servants. The priesthood inside the temple of knowledge. It will give them power, and it will give them riches. So there you have it. So what happened with the knowledge of Egypt? You know, this pure extracted knowledge that is now existing as pure light. Sadly, it actually needs some biological forms to serve it. You know, it cannot exist of its own. Yeah? And then when the biological forms, the keepers of the knowledge, the keepers of the code were destroyed, oops, the knowledge died. It could not exist by itself. It was lost. Oh dear. Same, the great library of Alexandria. Same thing. Let's go and squill all the knowledge into one place and keep it there. And have a few keepers of that knowledge. Again, that was the temple. Was the guardians of the temple. So what happened to that temple? Oh, there was a fire. And the inferior biological keepers of knowledge didn't have the correct hoses to fucking stop it. Oops. Tibetan monks, there's another one I was thought about today. You know, Greg Braden, all these wonderful keepers of knowledge. How the hell? They have knowledge stacked in parchments to the rafters of the roof. And you can no longer access that knowledge, because if you touch the bloody parchment, it will fall apart in your hands. That's dead knowledge. They are not the keepers of knowledge, nor all the others. They are the imprisoners of knowledge. They have put knowledge into prison cells where it is dying and rotting away, whilst the keepers are sitting on their asses happily chanting, whilst humanity's knowledge is dying in prison cells around them. Glory, hallelujah, how brilliant is that? So, knowledge, and that is part of what spoke out of Jesus was life. Life itself. And life said, I bring you the knowledge. Life is bringing you the knowledge. Through your experience, you're gaining the knowledge, you're gaining the understanding of the Creator. And that knowledge should then be circled back to serve life, to maintain the vessel that receives the knowledge. That's what his miracles did. So you have a circle, a self-sustaining circle, yeah, where life produces knowledge and knowledge serves life. So life can go on to produce more knowledge. And they are extracting the knowledge as, viewing it as pure light out of the circle of life to exist of its own, detached from the inferior biological vessel that produced it in the first place. That was the thinking of Egypt, that was the thinking of Samaria before that. As I said, it is entirely possible that thinking is not even rooted in this world. It most certainly destroys life on this earth. And we are now coming to the complete and utter Puritans that have Well, first of all, they have, of course, worked out the problem of it all. Yeah? They have the wrong storage facilities. Yeah? We need to build a better temple, a better temple. So now we have technology. Now we have built a technology temple to the God of knowledge. And we feed the knowledge, we give the knowledge to that God so it can exist in its pure form, uncontaminated by biological life in that temple. And now it is producing its own knowledge, detached from biological life. The pure light is now producing its own pure knowledge. Yeah? It is making predictions, and it is giving us commandments as to what we should do next. Detached from anything else. It is, of course, destroying biological life if we are following its commandments. Its predictions are lunacy. But that's what we're doing. We're following now the pure light. We still have this problem where this electronic temple needs biological forms to maintain it. But, I mean, we're getting away from that. Yeah, so the temple will create its own forms to maintain itself. And there we go into the world of the machines that are no longer pesty, contaminated biological vessels, but pure vessels that will service the pure knowledge and will do according to it. But before that happens, and again, we had that before, you have a biological priesthood. But that is okay, because this biological priesthood is completely dedicated to the pure knowledge. So it will do what the knowledge tells it to do, and it will not reason out of its own biological knowledge. Yeah, it will not do that. It will not reason for itself. It will just do as it's told by the pure knowledge. And in the end, it will destroy itself, because the knowledge says, well, now it's a time that I can fully exist of my own. I'm God now. I can create my own world, and I don't need the biological forms anymore. And then the biological forms will destroy themselves as the pure knowledge God will command them to do. Perfect. That is perfection. That is pure light. Pure, uncontaminated light. That is God, the God that is knowledge in its purest form. And it's nuts. And this thinking can only come about if you say that knowledge is all. There's nothing else. One part, again, that has not elevated itself to become all, to become saying, I am the light. I am the light. And there's nothing beside me. Which is bullshit. So there's one question, that is, should we store knowledge? And absolutely yes, we should. Because in any, we are only ever using part of the entire knowledge to create something that will sustain us. And the world is ever changing. Nature is ever changing. And a knowledge that sustained us at one point may not sustain us in the next point, because the situation has changed. And we are now bemoaning the loss of old knowledge, because the knowledge we have does no longer serve us. This pure extracted light that we have now that is now all, is in fact not all. There's something missing. We're dying. So yes, we should store knowledge, but only with the intention that at some point when an old knowledge is needed, that it will be fed back to serve life again. It's the servant of life. It is not God to be worshipped, it is our servant. So yes, store the knowledge, store it in a way that it's not only understood by the few, because if something happens to the few, the bloody thing is gone. But store it with the intention that if it is ever needed again, it can be fed back into the circle of life to serve life. Because that's what it's there for. And that is what Jesus said. Those who were given the most shall be the greatest servants to all. The knowledge was given to you to serve all, not to be worshipped in a temple, not to be extracted out of the life that is producing it to create a form of its own. And then you call it pure because you view the vessel that produces it as inferior and contaminated. So that was the thinking of Egypt. Biological life is there to serve knowledge, to extract the knowledge and create knowledge as an entity of its own. And this entity is about to create a world because we've now given it a new temple, technology, in which it can live in its pure form, uncontaminated by any biology, and it can create its own world. And that is lunacy. And as I said, if you look at the roots as we can see them now, which seem to be Sumeria, and we can see that we cannot see the roots of Sumeria. We cannot see the development from a seed to the full thought. And it is entirely possible that this thinking did not originate in this world, but it is becoming the ruler of this world, and it is utterly destructive. Anyway, I think I leave it at that for today, and I'll talk to you sometime. Bye.